positions within the sales department. Currently the senior manager of sales development, where she effectively manages the recruiting, training, and development of a team of entry-level sales professionals, while managing the group sales activities of a team of professionals that drives group ticket revenue through the creation of execution of game day events. During her time as the head fast pitch coach at Bainbridge, she led the program to 9 straight trips to the state tournament and their first ever state title in 2009. They were runners up in 2010 and 2011. Joining Liz from the Seattle Mariners organizations are Mike Mendolia, account executive premium sales. He joined the Mariners as a member of client sales and service teams in 2012. And then he moved into the full-time sales roles in 2013. He left the Mariners in 2015 for the Pittsburgh Pirates, only to return to Seattle and the Mariners 2 years later. Albert Jaimes, corporate partnership manager. Prior to joining the corporate partnership for the Mariners in 2016, Albert was with the San Francisco Giants for 11 years. Callie Rutherford, marketing coordinator. Callie was a member of the Navigator program from 2016 to 2017, moved herself down to Oakland, where she worked for the Oakland Athletics as their ballpark event coordinator before returning to the Mariners in 2019. Tyler Karskadon, sorry if I said that incorrectly, Karskadon, sales strategy associate. Tyler joined the Mariners in 2019 as a fan engagement intern and was quickly promoted after 9 months to his current role. And Jenna Capehart. Jenna joined the Mariners in 2017, holding a variety of positions, and currently is in sales and marketing activation strategist. So Liz, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Daisy. I think you covered everything. I think I'm done. You said everything that I probably needed to say. I'm just kidding. But no, thank you to obviously you, Daisy, Sean, David, and Dr. Stinson, because Dr. Stinson is actually the one that really got us started on this, what, 10 years ago, 8 years ago? I don't know how long it's been. So for some of you, I see some familiar names on here. I've spoke to a lot of you over the last probably couple weeks, months. I think I see Lene. She's just hiding behind a non-camera operator. But again, as Daisy said, I'm Liz McCluskey. I am our Senior Manager of Sales Development for the Mariners. I am in my 17th season with the organization. And so I've spent quite a bit of time with, the other members that are on here with me. And I'll take a second to thank them as well for joining us. We just finished our first homestand after being on hiatus for a whole year. So we're all kind of at the end of our weeks and hopefully going to get some rest this weekend. So I appreciate you guys all jumping on here. Really my role within the organization and how I got to where I am right now. I did graduate. I'm a graduate of Central Washington University. After I graduated, I went on to do some work with the Sonics and Storm before they left for Oklahoma. And then quickly transitioned into baseball, where I've spent my whole career in the sales department in a number of different positions. I've gone from the basic customer service role to a group sales role to a coordinating role on the season ticket team to now overseeing our sales development program, which the program is meant for first-year graduates to help get their foot in the door for sales. As well as the other side of my business is the group event world, where I get to oversee and have some fun working with a number of different departments within the organization of putting on special events like our central event that we do at the ballpark, our alumni events working with UW, WSU, Seattle U, all the way down to our marketing type events that I work closely with Callie and their director of marketing and our senior manager of marketing with, as far as Oktoberfest goes, flannel night, what else is out there? Stranger Things. Callie helps in the execution and creation of what those events look like in the ballpark, and I on the other side help to sell those events and get those unique pods into the ballpark that really wouldn't have another reason to come to game. They may not be baseball fans, but they're a Stranger Things fan, or they are a flannel fan, or they love beer and they want to come out for Oktoberfest. And we really just find ways to drive revenue and get additional fans to the ballpark. That in the gist is me. I'll let, who's next? Who do we got next coming in here? Mike?
Mike.
Obviously, if you guys too have any questions throughout this process, do not hesitate to chime in and ask us.
A tough act to follow. I'll echo Liz, and thanks for everybody for putting it together and spending the time with us. And no, it's fun to do stuff like this for me personally, so I enjoy it. And like Liz said, if you have questions, definitely ask them, because as many of us in here are sales or sales related positions, we all have no issue talking for 10 minutes. Albert and I especially can talk for way more than 10 minutes at a time. But it is much more fun when it's a more interactive experience as opposed to just me talking at you. So I encourage questions. Daisy, thanks for the introduction. Like she said, my name is Mike Mendolia. I'm on our premium sales team with Mariners. I graduated from a small Division II school in Pennsylvania, California University of Pennsylvania. So very confusing for a lot of people. There's a town of California in the state of Pennsylvania is what the school is named after. So very similar. While I've never been to Central, I imagine it's very similar to the small Division II school. And when I went there, I was worried about being overshadowed by Pitt and Carnegie Mellon and Penn State and Duquesne and Villanova, and like all of those other big time schools that are just in Pennsylvania alone. I mean, what I learned by the time I graduated is that it doesn't really matter. So don't be worried as you think about those things long term. It really doesn't have much of an impact at all. When I moved out here in 2012, the first time around, there were 3 others. At one point in the office, we had 3 PSAC grads, which is the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, our small Division II schools. There were 3 of us in Seattle. So very random to have something like that. So that's the thing I always, when I start talking about my story, is don't feel like you are at a lesser school because you're not at the big Division I school. So when I started to kind of kick this off, how many of you want to do sales? Do any of you want to do sales at all? Okay, so I was the same person. I did not want to do sales at all, like would have done anything else. And here I'm going into my 9th season of Major League Baseball, all in sales. So as you'll learn through all of our experiences, there are things that we do in generating revenue. And while Callie's in the marketing department is a part of our revenue generating efforts, Jenna is in our marketing department, but is also part of our revenue generating efforts. So in all of our roles, there's some aspects of sales involved. And as I came to learn, selling is not as daunting or as scary as I thought it would be. It's more about relationship building and all those sorts of things. So when I moved out here, I was graduating, didn't want to live at home, and just applied for every job under the sun. At one point, I think I had 84 applications out, and I took the job with the Mariners because I interviewed and they offered me a job, and I said, great, I'll see you. I'll move out there, and kind of took the leap of faith. So, again, in a super competitive industry, make sure you're giving yourself the best opportunity to succeed, right? If you only want to live in one town and you only want to work in one sport, you're automatically limiting yourself to a very finite number of opportunities. So having that broad spectrum has really helped me. And as Daisy said, like I've been on every sales team we have at the Mariners. I was on our inside sales team, our client sales team that Liz now is oversees. I spent a year on our group sales team. I spent a year on our season ticket team. And when I left to go to Pittsburgh, we were having our first child, so we wanted to move back closer to home, jumped to the Pirates and was on their group sales team. And what I found when I had the opportunity to come back, our environment, our culture here in Seattle was light years better than what I was experiencing in Pittsburgh. And so got the opportunity to join our premium team here. So, the main focus, the main part of my role is generating revenue through all of our different ticket packages and stuff like that. But there is some marketing. There's some marketing involved, there's some retention, there's some servicing, and all those sorts of things that we handle too. So, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I was telling Liz, I was worried about going over 10 minutes, so I tried to do a really Cliff Notes version of, my path to getting to where I am now. long-term, hopefully in a leading a team in the near future, ideally, and getting to cut my teeth into the managing aspect of the industry, which will be a lot of fun. So looking forward to seeing questions and stuff like that as we have them.
Well, that's a great segue. We actually have the first question in our chat there. Carter wants to know, how close does the sales department work with the front office staff? So I don't know if Liz or Mike wants to take that one, but there's our first question.
Good question. We're integrated in the front office. We are the sales team for the front office. So as you'll hear from Albert here shortly, he is on a sales side as well, but a different type of sale. But we are fully ingrained, just like any other department in the front office. So people need help with tickets. They have friends that want to buy tickets. They have friends that want to buy suites, packages, whatever it is. They're coming to us and looking to us to be able to help facilitate those relationships.
Thank you for answering that, Liz. Albert, you're up next.
All right. Well, thank you guys first and foremost for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you guys. I know it's important. You guys are busy doing school and getting information set up as you guys are figuring out what your careers are going to be. So hopefully the time spent with us is helpful. And I think the main thing that I want to start off by leaving you guys off with is, and I think I mentioned this on the last time I chatted with you, is always look to us as a resource. Hopefully this isn't something that you just see that you get us for a few minutes today and then we're gone. At least for me, and I think I speak for the rest of my colleagues on the call here, is that we're here to help and support you guys as you guys get into your careers. If you do decide in sports, we look back and I look and think of the folks that helped me get to where I'm at, and you need people to help you. You're not just going to do this on your own. So I think I want to start with that, just to know that you guys being on here is important, and we thank you guys for taking the time to want to listen to our stories. So I want to start though first with, Liz got like the 10-minute bio introduction about winning championships and everything, and I got like a quick, like 1 second, I just worked here and here and that's it. But I will just show you guys this. She may be a state champion, but I'm a 3-time World Series champion with the San Francisco Giants. So I just want to make sure that Liz understands where we stand in terms of the levels of hierarchy here. I got nothing but love for Liz. But as the oldest one here, this is actually my 18th season in baseball. So I think when you work in sports long enough, you're fortunate enough to be around teams to win some championships. So like I said, I graduated from proud alum of Seattle University. So I apologize that that's up, but this is kind of my little office space. And so I'm a proud Red Hawk. I graduated in 2003. And then I moved to San Francisco for graduate school, 2004. And I graduated from the University of San Francisco with a sport management degree, and lived in San Francisco for 12 and a half years before I made it back home. But during that time, I had the pleasure of interning with the Oakland A's. So the A's, Cali, I've got nothing but love for the A's, even though I'm a Mariner now. They gave me my first opportunity in sports, and I'll always be indebted to them for giving me a shot. And I was in ticket sales. I was doing group sales and ticket sales for the A's. I did that for 4 months. My internship ended there, and I was fortunate enough to jump across the bay with the Giants and did an internship in the sponsorship department. And then that finished, and I was hired on full-time after my internship. So my career started again with the A's back in 2004, then went with the Giants in 2005, got hired full-time in 2006. So I've been in baseball for a long time with 3 different organizations. And my career's kind of changed. I started in the sponsorship world, and for you guys that may or may not know sponsorship, it's a different type of sale, as Liz mentioned. It's not a kind of direct to consumer, direct to fan from a ticket perspective. I'm working with corporate brands and clients on trying to help their businesses grow through marketing and advertising with elements within the ballpark. Actually now even more than just the ballpark. I guess when I started, it was just ballpark. There wasn't social media, there wasn't digital and all that stuff. So now we actually can extend the brands outside the ballpark. But my job has really been to bring in corporate brands. So if you guys have gone to any games, you guys see in the arenas or ballparks, you see Toyota, you see Ford, you see Bank of America, KeyBank, et cetera, Amazon, Google, those companies. I work with those companies on helping them grow their brand, their awareness in the community, help them, grow any community programs they're trying to leverage. And then it's also internal. It's for their own employees, hospitality too. And we cross over. I work with Liz and Mike and everybody on the ticket sales side here on bringing opportunities from hospitality. But I kind of switched routes. I started in sponsorship as an intern, and then I jumped over and did our Hispanic marketing for the Giants since I'm bilingual. So I was able to leverage my Spanish into creating a department for the Giants while I was down there. So I worked on the Gigantes brand and just helped bringing new revenue into the organization through Hispanic marketing. I was able to cross over into doing some radio sales on the Spanish broadcast. And then after 5 years of doing that, I jumped ship to our PR and community relations group at the Giants, did that for about another 5 years, learned another side of the business, kind of that nonprofit public affairs side. But I really did miss the sponsorship side of things. I really missed that kind of hustle and bustle of trying to, close deals, right? And talking to folks and convincing them to spend their money with you and providing them that value in return. So I was fortunate enough to have made a connection with Callie, knows him, is Greg Green, who's our vice president of marketing. I met him at the Giants back when I was an intern, and we kept in touch throughout the entire, years of my Giants career. And an opening came up with the Mariners, and we had kept in touch. And I shot him a note, and he said, "Yeah, send me your information." So he got me to the right people at the Mariners, and I was fortunate enough to get a job in 2016 with the M's and moved back home in 16, and they've been here ever since. But I think a couple of things to highlight from there, and again, I'm happy to answer questions after we're all done here, but connections and networking and keeping in touch with people is a big thing. I want to make sure that, at least if I have one opportunity to speak, is to move around in any industry. I won't even say in sports. It's probably applicable to any industry. Is make sure you guys keep in touch with your networks, your contacts, leverage those folks, check in with them, keep in touch with them, because you never know when opportunities come. People are going to help you grow. And, me being the elder one in this group here, at this point in my career, if I'm going to move up or go somewhere else and grow, I'm certain, and someone said this to me a long time ago, Albert, like somebody in your current network will be the one that gives you your next job or will help you. And I consider that 100% true. So it's important for you to just get good relationships and keep in touch with people and check in with them. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Happy to answer questions after, but thank you guys again for the time, and appreciate you being here and being attentive.
All right, looks like we have a question for you, Albert. How important was graduate school when interviewing and applying for jobs and internships?
That's a good question. And I'm kind of mixed with that answer, because for me, it was important to go to grad school because I wanted to get into sports, and I didn't have a direct tie during my undergrad at Seattle U, right? So I think if grad school is important if you know what you're trying to get into specifically and you don't have a direct tie. And I guess this ties back into the networking thing. If, say, in my undergrad at Seattle U, I would have taken the time to be like, okay, I want to get into sports. I should start connecting and reaching out to people. Then those folks could potentially help you with internships or volunteer opportunities and help you get in. But I didn't have that opportunity. I think I waited too long, or I was too busy. I played baseball in college, so I probably was, just doing other things and not really focusing on what my long-term path was. So I needed the grad school route to get me those internships once I got in, to put me in positions to stay in sports. But I would say this is, you don't need a graduate degree to work in sports, obviously, or anything, quite frankly. But if you don't have a direct line, if you don't volunteer or intern, then if you know what you want to do, the grad school route was very beneficial for me.
Thank you, Albert. Callie, turning time over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Callie. I work in the marketing department. I'm marketing coordinator here. And both Mike and Albert kind of touched on topics that I think also resonate with me. I went to Western, so another D2 school, And kind of echoing what Mike was saying, at first, I kind of counted myself out. Like, I don't go to UW, I don't go to Wazoo with these big, robust sports programs and athletic departments. But I was able to intern in the athletic department at Western for 3 years that I was there. And I think it was far more beneficial for me than if I'd gotten an internship, or if I'd gone to UW or Wazoo and gotten an internship in their athletic department, because I was able to kind of have my hands in a bunch of different projects rather than being really specialized in one thing, which seems like most bigger athletic departments kind of pigeonhole you into one thing, whereas I was able to work on graphic design and game day activation, work with some of our sponsors and all of that. So echoing Mike again, just because we go to small GNAC schools doesn't mean that we are kind of in a lesser spot than some of the bigger Pac-12 or whatever other schools there are. So while I was at Western, I worked for the Bellingham Bells, which is a college summer league team in Bellingham. And I did that for 2 seasons during the summer. And again, was able to meet people, learn a lot about how game days work on a smaller baseball scale and just sports scale in general. After that, after graduation, I got a job with the Mariners on their Navigator team, which is our in-game promo team, which really serves as the face of the organization for fans. So they're on camera during inning breaks, dumping maple syrup on contestants or holding briefcases like they're on Deal or No Deal. So again, a lot of great opportunities, and I got to meet a lot of great people like Liz and my boss Mandy, who is now my boss again. So going back to Albert's point about people staying in contact with their network, that was a huge plus for me to be able to get another job with the Mariners, is that I kept in touch with Mandy. And when this position opened up back in Seattle, I was able to reconnect with her, and we'd been in contact a bit during my years in Oakland. So just want to reiterate that point that Albert so eloquently pointed out. So I was with the Mariners for 1 season in that part-time seasonal role on the Navigator team. And then I got a full-time job in Oakland and was down there for 2 seasons. I worked on their 50th anniversary season campaign. So we did a ton of reunions with all of their World Series teams, 20 streak Moneyball team, a bunch of different fun things with their alumni and corporate partners. And my main role there was doing all of the fan-facing events that were open to everyone. So national anthems, first pitches, color guards. I ran their kids club down there, worked on any events that were open to all fans. So we had a root beer float day that was really popular, that we would serve, 40,000 root beer floats to fans all game long. Beer fest, wine fest, all sorts of themed nights like that. I got to put together the music for fireworks shows, which was really fun. And just really, again, got to meet a lot of people in different departments and work across those departments to make the fan experience for A's fans as great as possible. And then following the 2018 season, I got the job back up here in Oakland, or in Seattle. And it's essentially the same role I had in Oakland, but just with my hometown team, which is obviously a dream come true. And so now I am able to oversee the Navigator team, which is kind of a fun full circle moment. Jen and I work with them really closely. So it's really cool to be able to give back in the way that Mandy and others gave back to me. I get to be, the mentor to these college kids that are trying to break into the sports world. And some of them don't even want to get into sports, but they just love to meet people and interact and kind of get their foot in the door of whatever industry they're looking to break into. I also work with we have a Hometown Heroes program now that we're honoring people that put their lives on hold when COVID happened and shut down the world, and are stepped up, and lots of frontline workers, hospital workers, community activists and heroes and all that. So that's been really rewarding as of late. And like Liz mentioned, I get to work, not so much this year, but in previous years, I got to work with her on all of our group events. So activating special spaces, theming them out. Liz will sell the tickets and get the item, but I get to decorate, which is one of my favorite things to do. Make photo ops, just make the experience as fun for the fans as possible. Because to our point, sometimes there's only one game that you get them in the ballpark for, so you want to make it as memorable and as fun as you can. So that's kind of my main priority and main focus.
All right, looks like, thank you, Callie. It looks like we have a couple of questions. First, Carter, I want to make sure I'm asking your question. You ask, how do the Mariners generate most of their revenue? I assume what you're asking is, out of all the different revenue streams, what is maybe the biggest or most lucrative? Is that what you're asking, Carter?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'll defer to Liz for that.
Okay.
You don't want to answer, Kelly. You know, it's a great question because it's a common question that I get a lot, but ticket sales is first as far as the biggest revenue generator, and then comes in Albert's group behind us. But really, you know, to that point, like Albert said, we all work together. And so, you know, if Albert has a deal on the table and somehow we can provide him something on the ticket sales side that's going to make that deal even better and bigger, we're going to do it. And it's going to be vice versa. So while sure, ticket sales from season tickets, group suites down to single game provide the majority of our revenue, it's all going to go hand in hand with one another because we have to work together to make it happen.
Very good. Okay, looks like we have a couple questions for you, Callie. So if you were to hire a marketing assistant, what kind of experience would you expect the candidates to have? Especially what sort of things should they focus on while they're a student? What sort of projects, things like that? Oh, looks like you're muted. There you go.
Okay, here we go. That's a really good question. I think, so we do the hiring for all of our navigator team. And one of the main things that I look for in that role is just excitement and passion for whatever role that they're going to be applying for. In terms of like a front office marketing assistant type position, I think it's really important to get your feet wet with, you know, an internship or a summer job. Like I said, was an intern in the athletic department at Western, and it did not pay well, but I figured that all the work that I was putting in then would pay dividends down the road. And it has, because I have this job that I love, that I've been dreaming about for, you know, however long. So, to that point, I think also taking classes that are, if you're not able to get an internship, taking classes and courses that are more specifically tied to whatever position you're looking to get into. So while I was at Western, there were a number of business electives that we could take within the marketing department. And so I really tried to make sure that the classes that I was taking would make sense for a position down the line that I wanted to have. So there was a sports marketing class, I took that. There was, you know, media integration, I took that. Just making sure that if you're not able to get those summer jobs, internships, that you're kind of molding your course load around something that makes sense for the future.
To kind of chime in a little bit too, if I can, quick, something that I always challenge college students to think of is think outside the box, right? So think about all the jobs that you've had and all the things that you've done. Like when I was on campus, we worked concession stands at Heinz Field for Steeler games. Obviously, working at a concession stand as a career is not something that was for me. It is for some people. Like Centerpoint does a great job for us, and people have made careers out of doing similar things. But what I took out of the concessions at Heinz Field is fast-paced environment, customer-facing, dealing with money, being quick, handling rude customers, handling people who are upset, and handling all those things, right? And so another thing that I've used a lot of, my first sales experience was giving campus tours, right? As Albert will tell you, selling is all about building rapport and building a relationship and developing understanding what people want and how can I help you get what you need. The biggest difference between at the end of the campus tour, I am not asking you for a credit card, the bursar's office is, right? Versus at the end of a sales call, I am asking for your credit card number to make the sale. And so I spun the campus tours as my sales experience, because all of the things you're doing on a campus tour as the person leading the tour, it's the same thing I'm doing when I'm trying to sell someone a season ticket plan. So, to Callie's point, that the best thing to do is to get an internship in the field and doing the job that you want to do long term. But if you're not able to do that, think hard about the jobs that you have had and the classes that you've had, and how can you translate the skills that you've learned, that maybe it's not the exact job. Like, you don't look at a concessions job and realize all of those other things if you just put it down on paper. So maximize your resume, the limited space you have on a resume, by looking at a job description and making sure you're using the skills that you've learned in your job that are getting called out in the job description. Use that to your advantage.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Another question for Callie. Do you create marketing plans for the Mariners? And if so, how do you feel about reusing giveaways from previous years or taking ideas from other teams, other organizations, things like that?
So the only marketing plans that I work on are for our kids club, and I would say that they're not nearly as robust as our greater marketing plan that my boss and our VPs work on. And Liz, feel free to chime in here on the giveaways. We don't repurpose giveaways year after year, except for this past year, which obviously was kind of an asterisk on the schedule. So a lot of the giveaways that we're doing are from last year's inventory, and we're planning on kind of divvying them up amongst the season. In terms of using other teams' ideas, I think that's pretty common across sports. I know that especially with our micro events and smaller group events, it's pretty common to get samples for our product that we might give away that were from a different team, just because our vendors work across the entire industry, football, baseball, basketball, all of that. And there's a lot of brands that do league deals. So like Star Wars nights, Star Wars has a league deal with MLB where all teams are able to do a Star Wars night if they want to. So it's pretty common for giveaways to kind of be repurposed. Obviously it's not a copy and paste, but there are some elements that typically are recycled.
I'll jump in here. There's a lot of crossover, especially for me. I probably spend, at least once or twice a week on the phone with somebody from another team talking about what we're doing in Seattle that might benefit them, or what they're doing in Texas that might benefit us. Really just, it allows us to be creative with one another, because if they see success, we'll see success. I think one of the, we started 15 years ago, a stitch and pitch night and knitting event that now 5 other teams have taken on because they saw the success that we had in Seattle, right? And so there's different ways to go about it. Obviously, if we come up with something, we'll get on calls with, 10, 15 other teams, and we'll discuss where that idea is going to take us, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to do it. And they'll take it back to their team and see if it's something that'll work for them. It's just, you want to have some cohesiveness within the league to help make yourself successful and make other teams better.
And to that point also, sometimes we have group meetings where we just, we'll all be on other teams' sites, pulling up whatever group events they're doing and kind of seeing what we can do within the parameters of T-Mobile Park and our fan base. So yeah, it's very common to work across teams for sure.
So I see a couple questions in the chat. I'm actually save those ones till the very end. We have a few more presenters, so I'm not ignoring, Carrie and Carter. I see you there, and we're going to get to you, but in the instance of time, we're going to push on and we're going to save those to the end. All right.
So Tyler, if you're ready.
I sure am. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. I wish we were meeting in person, but I do recognize some faces from our last meeting together. Thanks again for having us this season, even though it's virtual. It's always good to check in on the young careers of people who are interested in working in sports. I'm Tyler, and I did go to a big school, so I'm unrelated to kind of the expressions that my peers have used before me. But I was able to be involved in, I think, a similar sports careers club while I was an undergrad. And it was the largest student-run organization on campus. So while it was pretty immersive, it was challenging and pretty competitive to stand out or become involved in site visits and informational panel interviews. Luckily, I was able to join some of those, and that's where I ultimately got a lot of my fascination for working in sports. So after graduation in 2018, I applied for an internship position at the Mariners. During my postgraduate job hunt, a lot of marketing entry-level positions, I was finding a lot of 1 to 3 year experience required on these entry-level jobs. I wasn't that interested in moving directly into a sales-related position necessarily. I was definitely more hands-on with marketing, branding, advertising, figuring out, some strategic approaches towards targeting certain, demographics and audiences. So I did apply to an internship on our fan engagement team, which does fall under the sales umbrella, but it does kind of bridge the gap between marketing and sales. And I guess I should be speaking in past tense because this team doesn't exist currently. But at the time, this internship provided me with some cool experiences. Worked pretty closely with Liz on all of the group event activation. So seeing kind of firsthand how like all of these cult following, shows and themes and ideas can bring new fans to the ballpark. And I think Liz might have mentioned this prior, but a lot of those people who bought tickets because of a certain giveaway or an experience at the ballpark may not have purchased tickets to come watch baseball, right? So it did open, my eyes into more of the behind the scenes of building community relationships and figuring out cool and unique ways to bring people and build new fans at T-Mobile Park. So I held this internship for the 2019 season. It was a season-long internship and was able to kind of be in the right place at the right time. So that was after the 2019 season was completed, I kind of maneuvered my way into a full-time role on the sales strategy team. So this was fan engagement team to now the sales strategy team. And I was a sales strategy associate. Essentially did a lot of the core responsibilities that my internship held, just more in depth. And I was able to branch out and tap into a lot more analytical marketing aspects and build even more of a skill set and kind of hunker down into what I am more passionate about. So I held a sales strategy associate role from the end of the 2019 season, so September of 19 through this past December. Naturally, this all happened during a pandemic rollout. And so for me personally, it was almost a feeling of running within a startup type of environment because there's no kind of written set of rules to follow to market during an empty stadium season. So, I mean, Jenna, you'll probably touch on this next, but the seat fleet idea that we incorporated to A, drive revenue because we got to sell those, and B, come up with a cool idea that gave fans a chance to have a part of themselves around Mariners baseball. So that was definitely something cool, hands-on. Starting in this past January, again, we had a little bit of a shift happen and my role transitioned full-time into the marketing department. So right now I'm a strategic marketing coordinator. So I work alongside Callie and Jenna, but within a separate kind of vertical, an avenue of marketing, where we're pretty focused on the analytical side of targeting different segments of our fan base, retaining our most valued accounts and clients, which in my line of work, we deal heavily with season ticket holder and membership renewal rates. So figuring out how we can continue to bring back those high spend, valuable accounts and fans who want that added experience other than watching a game from the beer garden out in center field, right? So that's kind of where I'm currently working. It's definitely a young area of our marketing department, and I work a lot with MLB as a whole. So the league's marketing department definitely provides me with a ton of insights and dashboards and analytical tools to take away big ideas and then share with the rest of the marketing department to say, this is our upcoming roadmap for how we should target our fan sectors and figure out unique and strategic ways to market our products, which essentially are tickets and our players on the field. So we like to turn those into wins. But that's kind of where the path that I've taken to get to my role. I think I'm the youngest one on the Mariners side here, so I can relate to all of you. It wasn't that long ago when I was on the other side of the Zoom call or classroom when you guys were in person. So happy to always be a resource for y'all, and if you guys have any questions afterwards at the end, I'm happy to answer what I can.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, and Jenna, when you're ready.
All right, well, hello everyone. I think I'm the last speaker, so totally understand if I'm repeating myself, and it's just at this point, I'm saying a lot of similar things to what everyone else is saying, but hopefully I can give you guys just another perspective on my experience working in sports and everything. So I currently am the sales and marketing activation coordinator. I work on a team with Callie, and I work very closely with literally everyone on this call, which is the cool part of this. So for me, I got my degree from Boise State University. If you haven't gone to Boise before, you need to go. That's what I always say, so you should go. But while I was at Boise State, I think my biggest thing about still being in school and being in college is just get as much experience as you can while you're there. You're given so many opportunities, and you're really just starting out. I know for myself, I was very involved on campus. I took every internship. All of them were unpaid, which sucked, but I mean, it really gets you to a point where you can do what you want to be doing later on, which I know Callie talked about earlier. But really just get as involved as you can, take on as many internships as you can now. I think that's something I'm really grateful for from Boise State, is just all their opportunities I had and was able to use after graduating. After I graduated, I graduated with a marketing degree. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. Marketing, you can really go so many different paths. But to me, I was like, yeah, it'd be fun to be in sports. So moved back to Seattle, and I took on an internship with the Boeing Classic, which is a PGA golf tournament. And it was just a 3-month internship. And that was the first sports related job that I had. And literally just did just about everything as an intern with them. I was a marketing and communications intern, but I was doing everything alongside of them. And that's kind of where I learned being involved in sports and being on a sport, like working for a sports team or anything. It's always a very small but mighty group. Like, it's not as big of an organization as you always think it is. And it really taught me that working in sports is hard work, and it's not a ton of people that are putting in all the hard work. And it kind of just showed me that it's the kind of team I want to be on, is a group like that. So going from the Boeing Classic, I applied for a job with the Mariners. I didn't know anyone. It was a seasonal event coordinator job. So it basically was just for the season. There was no guarantee of it moving on to anything else. And I got the job, and I had no idea what the job was. I didn't really know going into it. But I helped out with all of the game day events. So pretty much everything that Callie, Albert, and Liz have all talked about, I was kind of on the ballpark side, helping put those events together. So making sure they had the right amount of tables and chairs, and if they needed engineering or housekeeping there, things like that. So also kind of touching on what Mike talked about earlier, it's not always gonna be the most glamorous job. And I would say with that role, it was not the most glamorous job in the world, but it got me so much great experience that in my role now today, I've gotten to really utilize and use. So working as the seasonal event coordinator, I got a full-time job after that, and working on non-game day events. So the ballpark not only puts on events for baseball games, our ballpark is used for so many different events. We have graduations, we have concerts, we have bat mitzvahs, we have giant church gatherings. We have just about any event you could think of that happens at the ballpark on a non-game day. So I helped out with those, which was really great and got me a lot of really good experience, but it just showed me I want to be doing those type of events for the Mariners and for the team. And I want to be more involved with the fans. And through my connections in that role, I moved to a different department. And I moved from, so I was in at that time, the ballpark operations department, moved from there to the sales department, on the team with Tyler and Mike, and Liz. There's so many salespeople on this call, but and in that role, I got to plan events for Mariner fans, and I got to plan events where players got to be at them. And to me, that was more what I wanted to be involved with. I specifically focused on season ticket member events and activations. So, Mike is working with our season ticket members and selling tickets to them. I think for me, my job was to really make sure, outside of their seats and outside of whether the team wins or not on the field, are they happy? Are they getting interesting benefits? So we send them gifts, we plan events for them, all of that. My job was essentially just making it fun for season ticket members, and it was awesome. But a thing called COVID happened in the middle of that. And I think COVID opened up a lot of new opportunities in this role. If any of you are interested in events, I think COVID's just an example of working in events. You really just have to go with the flow, and it's constantly changing. My job went from planning in-person events and engaging with fans in person to a completely virtual world. which I had no experience with before. And so last season, just really thinking about how to engage with fans virtually, which we ended up planning like 20 to 30 virtual events in the season. I got to be involved with Seat Fleet, which was the cardboard cutouts. Lots of really fun things. And I actually moved departments again, and I moved from the sales department over to the marketing department. Now working alongside Callie. I still focus on season ticket member events, but I also now get to focus just on all kinds of events for all kinds of fans, and essentially just the fun things that we bring to our fans at the ballpark. Recently, I got to plan a really interesting event. It was our drive-through rally, and we had never done it before. I was terrified doing it because we've never done it before, and it ended up being great. And we had it right before opening night, and it was just a really cool opportunity that I got to be a part of. But yeah, essentially my job is events, and I feel like when I started with the Mariners, I didn't really know that that's where I wanted my job to be, is events, but the Mariners have really given me the opportunity to realize like I want to be in events, and like it's really taken me to exactly where I want to be with events. And you know, I've also gotten to work alongside everyone on this call, which has been really awesome. So any questions on events or anything, I'm happy to answer them.
Awesome.
Looks
Thank you,
like-
Jenna.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, Daisy. Not a question, but Braden says he graduated at the park, and that was a really cool experience for him, it looks like.
Yay, good. That's great.
So we're now going to open up the floor to students for their questions. I know, Dr. Wolf, you're going to read a couple of previous students' questions, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat and they'll be read, or feel free to raise your hand and you can ask your question out loud.
Excellent. Thanks, Daisy. So we have two previous ones. So Carrie would like to know what ways are the Mariners able to generate revenue while ticket sales are so limited, and how do you adapt current budgets? How does that affect the money side of things?
I think probably myself, Mike, Albert can touch on his world, how we're doing things. I can say this, we're certainly happy to have people back in the ballpark. It's better than zero. I'll take 9,000 over zero any day, for sure. I think, you know, we've had to adapt a lot. I think what's helped us is the limited capacity, because it's now driven more people to buy season ticket memberships to have a higher priority to be able to get tickets, right? So our season ticket members, being our loyal fans and customers for years, you know, through COVID, they sat with money on their account, patiently waiting for the day that they could come back to the ballpark. And so they had first right of refusal on the first 11 games. And right now we're going month to month. Mike and I panicked slightly that we thought there was going to be an announcement made this afternoon, which would have really caused this call to be just a ruckus for all of us in our email boxes. But we made it through. We're okay for now. So really, we had to evaluate. We had to evaluate our memberships. We had to evaluate, you know, we had to recreate the whole stadium. I don't know if any of you had the privilege of going to one of our first 11 games, but we had to create pod seating of anywhere from 1 to 6 tickets, and every pod had to be 6 feet apart. And so trying to figure out in a stadium that holds 47,000 people, just making sure everything's kind of blocked off properly and making sure we're in good shape. But, you know, it is really, our prices necessarily haven't changed. We do, in a non-COVID environment, have a dynamic pricing structure. We just haven't played with it that much yet because we are, you know, sitting at 9,000. And so let's use the Dodgers game on the 20th that's coming up. You know, that is probably one of the biggest games that prices would skyrocket, and they could go up still, but we're still trying. We're not going to price gouge people. We want people at the ballpark. We want people to feel comfortable coming. So it's important that we make sure that we put our product out there and people are comfortable coming, and we're not, you know, we understand that we're living in a world where some people lost their jobs during this time, but still want to have a little bit of comfort and a little bit of fun. So.
Purely from a sales perspective too, we've had to get really creative, like Jenna said, right? COVID happened and there's a lot of creativity across the organization. So we gave season ticket members to encourage them not to refund after a whole season passed. We offered them two things. We offered them a 15% discount on their seats from 2020 to 2021, and they could refund that 15% discount if they wanted to. And then we also offered them free games to start the season. And so if you were a full season ticket member, you got a 15% discount from last year to this year. Plus you got 11 free games worth of tickets to use this year. So we gave them some incentives as a reason why they should keep their money with us. So purely from a business perspective, right? I think Liz can maybe make sure the numbers are, there's about $32 million that we kept for the Mariners instead of having to send it all back and then have to get it all over again when this year started. So we did a lot of that heavy lifting during last season in July and August as games were starting again. We were renewing and came up with the incentives for them to keep their money with us to help us. And then we created a brand new program of flex membership. So you basically prepay $600 is the first level, and then you use that $600 however you want to get a 10% discount off of seats. So we created what ended up being the perfect COVID plan, was created before the 2019 season even happened. And because we have that option now, like our only season ticket option is built specifically, and it can handle a limited capacity scenario because you don't have seats, you just have dollars to spend on tickets all season. So we helped ourselves, one, in being on the forefront of this flex idea where you have a bank of money you just use all season, and then two, getting creative and offering a really competitive incentive for season ticket members to keep their money with us has really helped us on the ticket side. Because right now it's kind of hard because it's so confusing. Because I could tell you, like, yes, you could become a season ticket member, but I can't tell you where your seats are. I can't tell you if you would get seats for the games that you want. I can't even tell you if we're going to be allowed to have fans for the games that you want until it's too late until the state tells us, right? So it is very challenging right now to sell new people because we don't have a lot of answers on when things are going on sale or what the capacity will be. To give you an idea, we found out on March 11th, we found out that we were going to be allowed to have 9,000 fans. We had a sales department meeting at 12:30, then went until 2:30. The governor made the announcement at 2:45. So like we had a 2-hour head start. Then we had 15 minutes to get ready from the end of the meeting until the announcement. And then we all had 300 emails unread for like 2.5 weeks, working 16 hours a day, just trying to keep up with everything. And so it has caused us to need to get creative and think about new ideas and how do you handle the servicing aspect and not just selling new. So I know, Albert, you guys have probably created brand new things we've never sold before on the partnership side because they have the same challenges that we do, that you don't know what we're going to be allowed to do quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, I won't take too much more time on answering this because I know we want other questions, but I'll say this, that even pre this year, so during 20 when the pandemic went on and there was no ticket sales opportunities, our department was one of the only ones that could actually generate revenue and, or more importantly, retain revenue, because we were more about how do we not lose partners and revenue and maintain the one we have. So I guess the only thing I learned, that our department learned about that, is you understand the value of relationships and partnerships, because you had to rely on, sorry, my daughter's yelling at me. You had to rely on your external relationships and even internal to get things done to maintain those partnerships intact. So when I say external relationships, you're talking about the value of the partnerships that you have with our broadcast partners, Root Sports and 710 ESPN. We had to leverage their assets to provide additional value for our partners to make up the revenue that they were losing by having no fans in the park. We had to work with Major League Baseball on our digital assets to make sure they gave us more to promote our partners through digital. We had to leverage different parts of the ballpark. There's parts now, I'm sure you guys watch games. We used to not have field signage on first and third base. Now T-Mobile has signage there. We didn't have pitchers mount signage. We have virtual signage now. So I think what we learned is that we had to rely on a lot of different aspects of our business internally and externally. I mean, we had to really rely on Callie and her team. So thank you, Callie, on a lot of the things we had to execute last year. I mean, we do still this year, but we didn't have fans last year. So, you know, no offense to our ticket folks, but, you know, we had to figure out a way to retain the revenue that was still present in the ballpark. So it was an interesting time to really understand the importance of partnerships and relationships. And I say that, again, our external relationships, but internally working with our colleagues to get things that we needed to get done, to at the very least not lose revenue, because we didn't really bring in new business, but we didn't really lose a lot of the money we were banking on. So that was important.
Excellent. Thank you all. So Carter wants to know, what marketing internships do the Mariners provide? And if I may be so bold, maybe any internship that might be applicable to a sport management major?
Well, we don't have any quote unquote internships at the moment. And I honestly can't remember the last time that we've had a marketing internship, but I think a good way to look at it is our navigator team is pretty much marketing interns. You know, they are able to, one of the only game day event or game day staff teams that has access to the front office, meaning where Liz, Jenna, Tyler, Mike, Albert, and I all sit. And, you know, our chairman and GM all have offices in there. So they are able to interact with those people, you know, if they're walking by, and able to get lots of really great marketing experience while also getting paid. So it's not necessarily an internship, quote unquote, where you're, you know, working office hours, but you get the same kinds of experience, activating promotions, working special events, things like that.
I'll chime in just in internships in general for us. I know obviously Tyler spoke to his in terms of the fan engagement internship. Obviously due to COVID in 2020, we didn't have any interns. We had them briefly, and then unfortunately we had to let them go. So coming into 21, we don't currently have any interns, and we don't plan to open up any internships from the sales department side of things, but we will going into 2022. Lucky for all of you, I will be overseeing that group. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. But yeah, so we as an organization right now are really just trying to get our feet back underneath us and understand where we need to fill some holes as far as interns go and some opportunities. But what I would also recommend to this group too is don't wait till May or June to start looking or asking, or even March, start looking in September, October, November, because especially in baseball or in sports in general, we look to start hiring those interns by, you know, January, February timeframe, so that you're in a position to be successful during the season.
Excellent. Thank you. This comes from Emilio. What are some best practices when it comes to communication between departments? And are there any pitfalls that any of you have experienced when communicating between those departments? How do you ever overcome them professionally? Communication is a pretty big topic, so.
Does anyone else want to chime in here? I know for me, at least in my role, I work with a ton of departments. So it's very important that I, across the board, am having meetings with different groups to discuss how whatever I need from them is happening on a regular basis. So thankfully, most of us, if not all of us, have good relationships with one another. We're able to communicate with each other on a daily basis, whether that's now through Teams chats, video calls. If some of us are in person, it's easier to just walk over to a desk and have a conversation. You know, Tyler and Jenna both mentioned that they left the sales department to go to the marketing department, but they still have a hand in our world as well. So we meet weekly or bi-weekly with them to make sure that our communication is still pushing forward, and the projects that they're working on for us are still pushing forward. So, you know, thankfully, and someone else can tell me I'm full of BS, but you know, we as an organization, most of us work well together, and that's the bright spot for all of us, is that we're able to communicate with one another on a regular basis. There's, Emilio, there's no doubt that there will be some pitfalls and there will be some things that are missed. And it just comes back to having that adult conversation of, hey, you screwed up. Here's where we've got to get better. This is what we missed. Let's fix it. Or, you know what? This is what happened. It's okay. We're going to move on from it. Let's make it better for next time scenario.
Excellent. So Carter's asking the hard-hitting questions now, the ones getting to brass tacks. Albert, is your marketing sponsorship position salary or commission based? I suppose that could be applicable to anyone in sales, but
Yeah, no,
comfortable answering that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate, I mean, that's good that you're asking those questions. I mean, I'm full transparency. I'll say, yeah. So my role should be commission, and it's changing that. It's been salary. We are changing that structure as we speak. So it will be a combo of both. It'll be a salary base with then commission based on, new revenue you bring in and renewals. So if I bring any new business, you get a percentage of that. If I renew business year after year, I get a percentage of that on top of my my base salary. But currently, the way it's been set up has just been a salary. But yeah, most sales jobs there's commission tied in. I mean, that should be your incentive to try to drive as much revenue as you can based on your commission structure. So no, I appreciate you asking. No, I'm all open book, so I'll answer anything.
What's super unique about us or the Mariners is that our base salaries are high from a sales team perspective. Like, to give you, and then we have commission on top of it. To give you an idea, my base salary with the Pirates was like 25 grand, and then it was all commission. So the amount of pressure that you have on yourself, and then the way that the rest of your teammates all interact with each other, was significantly different, because if you weren't selling anything, you can't live. Like, we had one kid at the time, right? So with one kid, you're in a family, you're making 25 grand. If you don't sell anything, you have no place to live. Like, you can't live off of 25 grand. And so the unique part about our setup is that, at least on the ticket sales side, is that we have a higher base salary than what most teams have, but then we also have the commission on top of it. So especially where it benefits you as coming in at an entry level, you're still trying to figure out how, one is sales for you, two, developing your skills to do it. We provide you with a salary that you can live off of, and then the commission that you make is on top of that. So you're not relying on having to hit the ground running. And if you struggle for your first couple months, now you're like, what do? I have nowhere to live because I can't pay rent. So that's a unique aspect of our setup from a sales perspective.
Oh, looks like Risa has a question. What kinds of accomplishments tend to be valued and rewarded in the departments with the Mariners? So what gets people's attention within the organization?
Jenna, you want to try and answer this one? Jenna's moved around a bit. I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah, no. I think what I've noticed, at least, first of all, great question. What I've noticed, at least with the Mariners, is thinking outside of the box. I think it's very easy for us to just continue doing the same things that we've always done. Like, that's very easy for us to do. I've noticed that the kinds of accomplishments that get valued or rewarded, I would say, are ones that are thinking outside the box and doing something different than what we've ever done before. And I think that's just a good way of looking at a lot of projects you're assigned, is looking at how it's been done before, but like, okay, how can we make it better and maybe change it for the future? I also think that also answers the second part of the question of how do you stay motivated? I know for myself, I love the challenge of trying to think of something new and creating something new. And I think that's also just the sports mentality, is like, all of us here like the challenge of like whatever sports is going to throw at us. I mean, COVID I think each of us went through our own set of challenges with that and in our jobs. And I mean, working on any kind of team, you have to be very reactive to whatever is going on with the team. I know for those of you that follow the Mariners, I know we just received some bad news about Paxton, and I know Callie works on a specific activation where we dump maple syrup on people because of Paxton. So now it's like, what are we going to do instead? And that's just one example. So I think being motivated and in sports is just really enjoying that every single day is something different, and you're going to get thrown something different every day.
I think too, something to add to that is a lot of people think that working in sports is just fun and games. It is fun. We all enjoy it. We're all here for a reason, but it's also hard work. And so it's you're not stepping in the door to hang out with the athletes on the field. They are your coworkers, right? You have a job to to entertain and put people in the seat so that they can perform, right? So it's the hard work side of it, but it's coming in every day with that mentality of thinking outside the box and how to better yourself to better your own department at the same time.
Thank you both for that. So there are, this is the last call for questions. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask them now. I do have one question I would like to ask to anybody. What are some differences with working with local versus national sponsors?
Good question. That's a very good question. So local partners and sponsors, more than not, they're really trying to get their company and or brand further awareness within our community. So you're really focusing on targeted efforts, more community related opportunities, because they're trying to get some of the market share here locally. So with that, budgets are smaller, right? I mean, you're talking about maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 partners versus national partners have $1 million plus budgets. So they're looking on just how do they penetrate your market with just branding and say, like, here I am. So a good example of that is Geico, State Farm, or big national ones we work with. They work across all sports, and they have millions of dollars of budget that they spend every year on advertising and marketing and sponsorship. They're really just trying to get a piece of what we have to just showcase their brand during games, so that they can say, hey, we're partnering with the Mariners. But sometimes national partners and sponsors aren't really engaged. So I don't look at that as a true partnership. I just look at it as they're just willing to give us dollars because they just want to leverage our marketing platform. And here's some dollars, put our sign up, and we're gone. Local partnerships, local small companies, mom and pop restaurants, local tire shops, local restaurants. Those are the ones that truly value our partnerships, because they're just trying to get their name and get recognition and grow their business by partnering with the Mariners that hopefully help amplify their reach because of the, the broad spectrum that we have across multiple mediums. So they're both unique and fun, and we need them both to reach our budgets, right? We can't just rely on small local partnerships to reach our sponsorship revenue budget, which is pretty high every year. We need those large ones, but it's a good blend of both, but you have to be unique and different in how you leverage both local and national partnerships, because they're definitely different.
Very good. So it looks like we have a couple questions in the chat. Carter wants to know, do you guys get to meet the players?
That's a common question. We all at some point have met them. There's probably not as much interaction, probably more from Callie's side and their group heading to spring training and having to do a number of different activations with our players. But it's, on a daily basis, you're not crossing them as you walk down the hall. Obviously, their schedule is different from ours. We're in there, 8:30 to 5:30, and on game day, they're coming in at all sorts of our time. So we've all at some point had the opportunity to meet some of them, spend some time with them. use them for different activations that we've needed to do, different events, but it's not an everyday crossover.
Excellent. And I'm actually going to sneak a question in myself before I answer Braden's. We'll probably wrap up Braden's last one, but Seattle's a unique location that we have, two minor league affiliates in close proximity to the pros. I know they're different organizations, but are you able to integrate any of your sales strategies or things like that with, the Rainiers and the Aqua Sox? Is that something that happens at all? Do the different levels get integrated on the sales side?
Not necessarily. I would say it probably works more where the Aqua Sox and the Rainiers are coming to us to pick our brains on best practices in terms of what we're doing. But I mean, I think, and I'm sure Mike has had a number of conversations with some of their salespeople. I know I have. There's not much crossover there, but obviously we're going to connect with them, and if they need our help, we're going to help them. If they're, if we can do something to help them, we're going to do it, and vice versa. But there's not as much cohesiveness there as you would think.
Kind of weird. They're kind of our competitors in the marketplace. Yeah. So we have people that will call that are down in Tacoma, and they say, "Oh, we don't want tickets in Seattle. It's easier for our staff to go to Tacoma." And now we don't have it so much with the Aqua Sox because it's been short season, but now with them being full season, I imagine we start to hear that from the people who live up north. So while they are in our organization as a whole, they sometimes take stuff away from us from a ticket sales perspective because of the logistics and the traffic issues in Seattle. So it's kind of a weird setup because they are a direct competition in the same marketplace on the ticket aspect.
Very good. All right, and this will be our last question, and then I'll kick it back over to Daisy. But Braden wants to know if Paxton's able to come back. Is Maple Grove coming back if the capacity is high enough?
I can try to tackle this one. So Maple Grove was unique because it was a totally fan-led seating section. So it was kind of like a guerrilla marketing strategy on their own. It wasn't anything like Kings Court where it was a front office led initiative. It was all just fans that loved Paxton that kind of did it on their own. As far as Paxton coming back, I mean, the news of his elbow is all really fresh, and it looks like he's going to have Tommy John surgery and will be out for the year, but obviously that was tweeted out 4 hours ago. So no one really knows at this point what's going to happen with him, unfortunately. But there was someone dressed in an Eagle outfit on, what day was that, Tuesday that he picked?
Was that Tuesday? Yeah.
So there were members of the Maple Grove out there. But again, that's all, fan driven.
Well, thank you guys all so much. That concludes our event for the evening. We would just like to thank all of our presenters. We greatly appreciate all of you guys taking the time to speak with us. I know I learned a lot. And we would like to thank everyone at home for joining us as well. Be sure to mark your guys' calendar for the Northwest Center of Sports Management Summit coming up on May 4th. Watch your emails and social media for more information on that. It's going to be a half-day conference featuring exciting topics from top sports professionals. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more information coming up on that and other events. So thank you guys all so much. And if Dr. Dallin or Dr. Rolfe want to add anything, then have a great evening.
Yeah, one last thing, just wanted to say if there are any of you from the panelists that could stay on the call, and if there are any of you students that wanted to ask any kind of last minute questions after this is over, please feel free to do so. I know we hadn't really coordinated that with them before, but Liz is usually used to kind of flying by the seat of her pants anyway. So if any of you panelists can stay on, and if there are any students that have any questions, we'll be able to do that briefly here right after as well.
And I would recommend to all of you just to reach out and connect with any of us too via LinkedIn. And if you have additional questions after this or something comes up and you want some more information, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Excellent. great plug for LinkedIn too, which we're always trying to push. So thank you, Liz. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and end this event. And again, for those that want to stay on, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us today.